very, very lucky man. It's my job, and I do get paid for it, to try out absolutely remarkable bits of machinery, enjoy myself all day long, and then tell you about it. Anyway, I've got 17,000 horsepower here, 17,000, and that means that in a little over 4 minutes, I can be at my top speed, 40 kilometers an hour. And the design of this thing is just breathtaking. It's the perfect marriage between hydrodynamics and pure sex. Turn up in one of these and people will definitely notice. Another astonishing feature of this powerhouse, in fact, I think it might be a unique one, is its luggage capacity, because you pack it, and then you pack it, and then you pack it some more, and you keep on packing, and it just never ends. It is absolutely incredible. You can put everything you own on board, and there's still tons of room to spare. I've never seen anything like it. And then there's the air conditioning system. This baby is seriously cool. In fact, I think it would have to be a really hot summer's day before you really appreciated 25 degrees below zero. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what is this bloke going on about? Well, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be testing what is probably the biggest and most powerful bit of transport technology I'm ever likely to lay my hands on. It's got the power, the beauty, all the soul. Absolutely no idea where I am.
Well, I'm pleased to say it's a straight six engine, just like all the really classic sports cars. And I'm just going to check that the cylinder heads are tight, then we can fire this baby up and hit the road. See. The controls for the ship. Very simple, forward, reverse and stop. So I'm going to press reverse and back out of the harbour. Here we go. I don't think that's right. It's supposed to do 97 RPM. That's about 1 rev a day. This is the American inventor John Fitch. He made the first successful trial with a steamboat on the Delaware River in August 1887. It used rank paddles and screw propellers, but unfortunately Fitch didn't know the difference between a good business proposition and a bunch of bananas. So it was his colleague Robert Fulton who became known as the father of steam navigation. Interestingly, the first steam car came before the ship. It was designed by a Frenchman called Cugnot in 1769, and it was intended for pulling heavy artillery, although unfortunately it could only run for about 10 minutes at a time. In fairness, though, that's about as long as Paris is usually defended in a typical war. The French are lovely people and very good at cooking, but unfortunately they're not really cut out for fighting. The first steamship to cross the Atlantic was the SS Savannah in 1819. It was fired by charcoal, which produced a lot of very thick black smoke. So much, in fact, that it looked like it was permanently on fire. And that's exactly what the first European thought had happened when they spotted it off the coast of Ireland. Over the years, steam technology was fine-tuned, and the first diesel engines were fitted to ships in the early 1900s, although curiously Dr. Diesel drowned when he fell overboard from a cross-channel steam ferry. In horsepower terms, we went from around 500 in World War II to anything from 3,000 upwards. This lady has 17,000.
So, 17,000 horsepower, that's absolutely fantastic. It's a lot more than I'm used to, but of course it's completely useless if you don't know how to handle it. So, enough about power per se, let's talk about control. And it's up here on the bridge where you realise just what a complicated job it is, steering a big boat. I mean, you can't just ram the throttle forward and then hit the brakes at the traffic lights, because there are no traffic lights, there's just a port which you'll drive into and ruin all the bananas. So, in fact, a ship has to have instruments and dials and knobs and telephone to talk to the Prime Minister and all that sort of thing. A bit more complicated than I'm used to be honest. This, for example, is called the telegraph. This controls the engine through the engine room, and it's just a lever. That's sort of like power. We've got it on half speed ahead. That's all hunky-dory in the engine room. Then over here, excuse me, we have the steering, which is actually slightly disappointing, because what we've got here is the wheel off a Sega rally machine from an amusement arcade, and when you turn it, absolutely nothing happens. And that brings me on to an interesting point. When you've got all that power and all this weight, you need to be very, very careful about where you're going. And actually, it's not particularly helpful just looking out of the window, because when you're at sea, there are no reference points for your speed or your distance from the land. In the car, for example, I've got a woman trapped behind the dashboard, and she says, at the next roundabout, please turn right. That's useless out here because there are no roundabouts. What you have is much more sophisticated electronic maps of the whole world and the channels, and then more electronic stuff to tell you about the weather. But up here, there are the sort of instruments I'm a bit more familiar with. This one is the speed, this one is the engine RPM, that's pretty much like a car. This one tells you which way the rudders turn, starboard or port. That's just a clock. And this one is a clinometer, which tells us how much the captain has had to drink. In the last voyage, he drank enough to list by 30 degrees to port. Now, this bit of the bridge is concerned with navigation. This is a sea chart, this is a parallel ruler, here is a pencil, and because this is a Japanese ship, it comes with a pair of chopsticks. But actually, this is a very old-fashioned way of doing it. This is what Admiral Nelson would have known on board HMS Victory. These days, it's quite a lot more sophisticated. This is a GPS system. This is another type of GPS system. This is a Doppler device for measuring your speed across the ocean floor. This is a depth sounder. That's a clock. That's another clock. They like clocks on here. That is a radio telephone. This is a wire service with a weather report. That's the captain's cash box. And over there are some massive screens. And at the opposite end of the technological spectrum from that, which is a pencil sharpener. So, that's today. High technology safeguarding a high-risk environment. But it wasn't always like that. I've broken the captain's pencil sharpener, and now I'll be made to walk the plank.
So what would be in Nelson's briefcase if he set sail today to biff the French? Not quite the same stuff as our modern captain, I think. Navigation equipment on the bridge has changed from the old and charming wooden instruments to electronic equipment, from the sextant, which is seen here being used to blind people, and the early compass, to weather charts, electronic maps, and of course, SATCOM. Cars have evolved as well. They've got GPS. Some of them even have a collision avoidance system. Now, in the early days, of course, cars were used to transport very rich blokes to and from their estates, as I'm sure most of you will be familiar with. But as the customers grew more demanding, the technology developed. They offered added value, from side doors to hatchbacks, open roofs to air conditioning, and from travel trunks to estate cars. Think about the latest MPV cars, proof that even a niche transport mode can offer high quality and become a self-conscious industry in its own right. Here's an Aston Martin, and reefering, I can now see, is the Aston Martin of the sea.
All right, Captain, all right, I'm going. Anyway, this very friendly reefer ship, it fills up in Panama, then Costa Rica, then Colombia, and it unloads in Antwerp and then Portsmouth in the UK. This is Antwerp, as I'm sure you can tell because of this foul and absolutely typical Belgian weather. Now, the cargo hold of a modern reefer vessel like this one is about 9,000 square metres. That's enough space to park 750 cars. Or perhaps more relevantly, that's the same as 285 truckloads. So that's 255,000 cases of bananas. So that ship will hold about 80 million bananas. So if every man, woman and child in Antwerp ate a banana every day, that lot would last for 38 days. 38 days. Right, well, we better make a start then.
Now, you can't grow bananas in Antwerp because obviously it rains all the time, but our partners in South America and Africa developed an early logistics system to load and ship the yellow yummies for us. This was the very cradle of perishable shipping. They even developed ways to find and retrieve lost cargo. Think of this as an early track and trace solution. Of course, none of them had ever heard of temperature reading, permanent climate control, or even CO2 control for perishables. These are the technologies designed to raise reefer shipping to what it is today, a highly skilled logistics niche and a cornerstone in maritime transport. Unfortunately, we've been rather less clever at advertising bananas on the telly. There you go.
I love a banana. Hey, you can't go yet, you've still got my car. Captain, you can't go, you've got my car on board. You've got my expensive car. I wasn't swapping it for a banana, you sea pirate.